Josh, today we're going to talk about gray men or gray man and demons. You ready?
I think so.
All right, episode 76.
So,
Yes, sir.
gray man and demon.
So, what is a gray man? A gray man. One of the benefits of being a USCCA member is getting this really cool magazine called Concealed Carry. And the different level of memberships are the basic one is, say, $20, and the one that I have is $30. And the difference is getting this magazine is one of the differences, and it's a $10 magazine, so it covers. I was going to go down to the $20 one just to chip away, save some money, but I thought I'd use this magazine for content.
Right.
You know, I use it.
Yeah,
I used
because
it.
we teach in the gun club on
Yeah,
Wednesday nights.
that's right. And last night we talked about this last night in Gun Club, becoming a gray man. What is a gray man? Why would you want to become a gray man / woman?
True.
Gray person.
I'm
Why
not
would
really
you?
interested in the latter.
Me either. But so this is an owl, right? So this gives you a little bit of an idea. That's exactly right. A gray man paradox. Blending in while projecting confidence. So when we're talking about self-defense or environmental awareness, there's a balance between standing out and not fitting in, but blending in. I mean, the whole thing about concealed carry is you're concealing a device that may help you survive a situation. And you're not open carry, you're carrying something concealed.
Right.
So that's kind of fitting into an environment without standing out. You know, there's a fine line between being confident, not appearing as vulnerable, and standing out. You don't want to fit into an environment in that you're looking meek and vulnerable, and you're just kind of tipping in and tipping out like on eggshells. You want to walk upright. You want to make eye contact to a certain extent without being creepy, and you want somebody that may be looking for the weakest link to pass right by you.
Yeah, sounds a lot like predator prey.
It kind of is.
Stuff, right?
It kind of is.
You don't want to carry yourself as someone who is easily preyed upon.
Because I can say most of the interviews that I've seen and things that I've read, books that I've listened to and read about people that have lived a lifestyle of taking advantage of others, been caught, and now are using their skills to teach others how not to be vulnerable. They frequently say, they're looking for the weakest link. They're not looking for a confrontation that's going to be challenging.
Right.
It just makes sense, right? If you're looking to take advantage of somebody in a situation, you want the path of least resistance. And you don't want that to be you. But how do you do that while not standing out and looking like somebody who could be a problem? I mean, the answer is finding your own middle ground on not being vulnerable, but not looking like a weak link also. Last night in Gun Club, I brought some clothes in, some 511, who is a company that makes tactical clothing. And it was clothing I used to wear to the range. You know, it's got the baggy pants and the big shirt with 1,000 pockets in it and all this stuff. And it's okay. I've got the right to wear that where I want to wear it. But should I? because even if you don't know what the manufacturer is, you look kind of odd. You look tactical.
Right.
It's made to look that way, right? I could look that way if I want to, but do I want to? I was standing in a Subway last week, in front of me, the one guy in front of me, he was facing ordering, and I was back a little bit. This guy was 6'4". He had all the modern tactical gear on, open carry, and he was a state trooper. And that dude carried himself well. You know what I mean? Yeah. That dude looked like a guy that I wanted to protect me. Mm-hmm. Anywhere, I haven't seen a guy since then that I would prefer to protect me other than him. I'd want him to walk in front of my wife and protect her. If I could hire him at a cheap rate, he would be with her the whole time, protecting her everywhere. Because you look at him and go, I don't want to mess with that guy. Yeah. You know what I mean? He's not imposing, right, but he looks like he knows what he's doing,
It's kind of a double-edged, or two sides of a coin, too,
mm-hmm.
because in an emergency, that's the kind of look that you want to take out first.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
That's exactly what I'm saying. That's exactly what I'm getting to. If you're going to look like that, you better darn well know what you're doing.
Yeah.
You better know what you're doing. You can't walk around with your head in your phone or all that, because you are a target. You might as well have a target on your back and on your front. This is who we're going to take out first, because he's a threat. He's open carrying, but he's a state trooper. You know what I mean? Right. That's what he does.
It's kind of like in wartime. One of the goals is to take out the leadership first.
Right. That's right.
That's why sometimes you don't have high-ranking soldiers or whatever on the battlefield
mm-hmm.
all the time, because people know that.
Right.
Look for this uniform or whatever.
Yeah.
And they'll go for that first.
So I don't know if it was Forrest Gump or some movie like that where the soldier just landed in Vietnam, just got off the chopper, went over to meet his leader, and he salutes him. He goes, "Don't ever salute me like here, mm-hmm. right here, because if somebody's looking and you get saluted, that's your leader."
Yeah. Right.
That's the guy you want to take down.
Right.
I think in Civil War, the flag guy was the first person they took down, because this person kept the line. Everybody was looking at the flag. Am I right? Yeah. When you're going forward, you're looking at the flag. Take the flag guy down, the drummer down. You know right. what I mean? These are the people who are most vulnerable. So I'll go back and I'll talk about the guy in Subway. That guy pulls it off. I have every right to dress. You have every right to dress just like he does if you're coming from the range or doing whatever, except for the open carry. Mm-hmm. But should you? I don't want somebody to look at me and go, this guy must know. I don't want that. I want to walk into a Subway with my little 9mm Glock, under my tucked into my pants, and I want to leave. I want nobody to remember me. Mm-hmm. I don't want anybody to remember. I want to wear this hat, and I just don't want to be out in the open, On the other hand, if somebody is coming into that Subway and they have intentions of taking advantage, robbing that Subway or doing whatever, because people they're in need these days. You know what I mean? Anytime somebody is desperate, you're going to do desperate things. So I want somebody to. There's a fine line between being the person that's not vulnerable and fitting in. So somebody comes in, they look at me most of the time the way I'm dressed. I'm not gonna look like somebody that's gonna bother them. So they're not gonna be scared of me, right? But you kind of want somebody to look at you and go, he's not vulnerable. So there's that. You understand what I'm saying? There's that fine line. What are you gonna project? How are you gonna project? Well, eye contact is important to me. Just if I walk in somewhere, I'm going to try to make eye contact with everybody that's really close, just real quick. Just real quick. I tell the story of going into Publix one day. I think I was coming from the range. I don't remember, but it was one of the times that we were really talking about environmental awareness in Gun Club. We were leaning on that pretty heavy, and I was just kind of vetting myself, thinking how I'm walking, it was real busy. I'm walking and, going from aisle to aisle, and my head was up, and I go to one aisle and I look, and we make hard eye contact. I just look away, not even 3 seconds, probably 2 seconds, just to check, and then something made me look back at him, and he still stared at me. He wasn't just making eye contact, he was glaring at me. And I just couldn't help it. I kept looking at him in my head, what are you doing? Why are you looking at me like that? And I passed on by, and I turned around, and I started kind of following him. I was paying attention to him more because I want to know if this is going to be a problem or not. What I concluded is that he was doing the same thing I was doing, but he just didn't read the second.
Each other out.
Yeah, he didn't do this. He didn't read the second page. You're not supposed to glare at somebody. You make eye contact with him because he was in tactical gear. Mm-hmm. He was probably just coming from the range, and he was in that mindset. But what I want to say to our listeners and viewers, this is not the eye contact I'm talking about. I'm just talking about touching base. I see you. Touching base. How you doing? Good. He had a serious look on his face, and he was like this.
It was burning holes through you.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, I touched base with him, and he's still touching base with me, like looking at me, like, dude, we're about to have a problem. What is the deal with this? That's not what your instructor meant.
It makes you uncomfortable when you know that you're being analyzed by someone.
That was a challenge.
Yeah,
is what it was, and I just don't think that he understood that's what he was doing. You and I have been teaching people how to shoot guns for a long time. Mm-hmm. And we've gone through a lot of students. We're not huge experts by any means, but we probably more than most that carry guns. And that's just something that you really need to know, not to glare at people. You're challenging them when you do that.
Right.
Anyway, being a gray man, you got to find your own gray. We have a friend, Don, in the gun club who, during strategic times of the year, he wears his Trump hat, right? And it's all Trump. It's got Trump all over it. Trump. Everybody else sucks, whatever. He's got a right to wear that. But do you want to, you don't want to go to certain places wearing that if you want to fit in, Yeah. There very well may be times at a rally or whatever where that's normal. You're going to be abnormal. You're not going to fit in unless you're wearing one of those.
Right.
If you go to the beach, you're wearing a suit. You're not going to be fitting in if you're not wearing some shorts and whatever. So you got to know your environment and know what it is you want to project.
Yeah. I remember, so I do a lot of traveling for engineering because I'm always going to locations where there's damaged buildings. And,
right.
Doing engineering and forensic inspections and stuff. And one of the awkward things, so for the longest time, because I'm a member of the NRA, I had this really nice backpack that was super useful and I carried for a long time. The only problem with it is emblazoned in red on the back of it was NRA.
Oh boy, yeah.
And but I didn't have another backpack, so I needed this as my carry-on to carry my laptop and all this kind of stuff. And so I'm walking through the air, and this didn't dawn on me until I was in an airport that was in a characteristically like dark blue state. Mm-hmm. And I forget how it dawned on me. Maybe I had just seen a news article or something about that. But anyway, I'm like, I'm walking through an environment where this is a really bad thing.
Right.
And so, I usually carry a black Sharpie with me because I have to mark on something. And so I pulled my black Sharpie out, and black bag, red letters. I colored it over in black.
Did you really? Wow.
And because
dedication.
Yeah, because I here again, I'm not looking for a confrontation. I'm not looking like in. I have no problem at all if someone has an opinion about guns that's different than mine. Mm-hmm. But I also don't want. There's a lot of people who are confrontational about it. I'm not. Right. I'm not going to go and try to proselytize for Second Amendment or whatever. I just I have my beliefs. I'm comfortable with those.
Right.
But a lot of other people aren't, and I didn't want to be the catalyst for a confrontation.
Right.
And so I did that, and in my mind, I'm thinking worst case scenario, being approached by someone or whatever, because you hear all these bad stories.
Yeah. Right.
And I'm thinking, okay, no, like my story is my name is Nathan.
Craig Heinzman, here's my address. This is where I go.
So like that way, if someone accuses me of NRA, like, no, my name is Nathan. These are my initials.
I like it. NRA.
Yeah.
Nathan. Robert
Nathan Randall Andrews or something.
That's good. That's good.
Yeah, I don't know, but that's I've even though politically I would identify as being conservative, I'm not the kind that likes to make that overly obvious. I don't go around with the Trump hats. Well, I mean, for other reasons too, but I don't like to give people any additional information to make a confrontation out of.
I think if we lived in a place where that we were confident that you could have a discussion,
right,
that'd be different.
Yeah, there's a lot of people that are inflammatory about any sort of beliefs.
Right.
That I'm not interested in. It kind of goes the same way with, people will plaster their cars with bumper stickers about like their honor roll children or their beliefs about the president or a little fish, all this stuff. And I don't like doing any of that either because all of that is a potential for confrontation. And I don't like that.
Right.
And not only that, but especially with the fish thing, I don't want to accidentally cut someone off and give that a bad name.
I know.
So
right.
yeah,
Right.
so I will put like a Darwin fish on my car and cut people off.
And cut people off. Give them the reputation. Well, that's a good point as far as stickers and advertising things too, like hats and especially on car. Every time I see a big, beefy truck that is twice the size of my car that has SIG stickers on it, or my other car is an RA or AR or something. I've seen trucks with little silhouettes of guns
Representing the members of their family.
Yes, representing the members of their family. I always think this guy probably goes to the range once. He probably has never shot most of his guns. He probably has really nice guns, probably, but he doesn't know what he or she's doing. That's such an antagonistic.
Well, then I think we should be confident enough in our own beliefs that we don't have to do that.
That's exactly right. It's the lack of confidence. If you have to scream those things out, in my opinion, that's a lack of there's something wrong there. The person that you need to really be cautious about is the person who owns one gun, who knows it really well and uses it with confidence. Quiet confidence, in my opinion, and you never know who that is. Anybody can shoot and kill you. Stupid people. That's who's going to shoot and kill you, in my opinion. The people who are responsible, you don't have to worry about those people. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I just don't feel comfortable at all.
None of my firearms are ever going to be used in violence.
No.
Yeah.
No. There's no reason for. You know what I mean? No reason for. Anyway. So quiet confidence is what we want to shoot for and to blend in as shoot for. Get it? Let me transition over to something else.
Okay.
What have I been listening to lately? Can you see what that is?
Yes. I can't read it, though.
Goodbye Yellow Brick Road.
Oh, okay.
Elton John. And this is Elton John's first double album. And I read what I like about these CDs is that it has all the lyrics in it. It has information in it. So I read a little bit about it. By the way, Chris, this is a playground for chronic lyricosis, like I have, because there's a lot of words in these songs. That's a lot of words, right?
Yeah.
So I personally
also, he's someone who is not a gray man at all.
No, good. Speaking of the opposite of gray men, I mean, there's a lot of words. So every word is a potential for me to have, show my chronic lyricosis. I haven't read all of them, but I've read one or two, and man, I'm way off. Mm-hmm. I'm way off in thinking what he's saying and what he's actually saying. But I'll say again, I'm not going to change. I've done this for 50 years, 60 years. I'm going to continue on. Benny and the Jets, that's a lovely one. I love this one. Say Candy and Ronnie. I never knew Candy and Ronnie was ever part of this this song at all. Have you seen them yet? Hey, Candy and Ronnie, have you seen them yet? But they're so spaced out. Benny and the Jets. I never knew Candy. You know Candy and Ronnie was part of Benny and the Jets?
Nope.
Not at all.
The only part of that song I know is Benny and the Jets.
But Benny, she's got electric boots, a mohair suit. I actually got that one right. Now, I don't know what a mohair suit is, but I've been singing mohair suit for as long as, I need it in a magazine.
So
I read it but I say, I need it, and it makes no sense. Read it in a magazine, totally makes sense, but I always say, I need it in a magazine. That's chronic lyricosis at its best.
Well, speaking of lyricosis, because this is something I sometimes think about is, and we've discussed this before. So as Christians, right, who are navigating this secular world, there are times when I come across a song where I've enjoyed the song, and it has all the right combinations of tunes and beats and all that kind of stuff. And when I encounter what the lyrics actually say, I find it opposes the ideology that I pretend, that I follow, right?
Yeah.
And so, how does the Christian resolve that?
Yeah.
In listening to and enjoying music that not only there are a lot of beliefs that Elton John holds to that we don't. There's a lot of lyrics in his songs.
What do you mean exactly? I think it's pretty obvious.
Oh
anyway.
Yeah.
But what a nice guy, man! I've seen
absolutely.
Many him. Gosh.
And that's another thing too. Like you kind of have to separate the ideology from the actions.
We've
sometimes
had podcasts on this. This is a great topic
because there are no two people that agree on everything 100%. So there's always that potential for debate or whatever.
Yeah.
And how we treat someone who believes differently than we do is a component of that Christian faith that we share.
Yes.
Treating people with love and respect and that kind of stuff. And so this kind of plays into that because, what happens when you find that you enjoy a song that is either made by someone that follows an ideology that opposes ours, or the lyrics do?
Yeah. It's a good question. Part of me says, get over yourself. Just listen to the music. You know what I mean? Then a part of me says, music can get into your soul. We've talked about that. That's what makes music so good. It can bring you to a place so quickly. And is that a place I want to be? It builds feeling, is what it is. It creates a feeling, or it mimics a feeling, or it just brings you to a memory. So again, you've got to find your own happy medium. You know, I've said before, I was talking to somebody yesterday, I'm on the highway to hell, that song. I'm not on the highway to hell. I'm more than confident that I'm not on the highway to hell. I like that song, but I don't listen to it anymore because I know I'll sit there and I'll start singing, I'm on the highway to hell.
Yeah.
The good thing about that song is AC/DC, every song sounds almost the same, so I can just fast forward and listen to another one and it has the same beat.
Well, so this concept shows up a lot of times in Scripture. Like, this is one of the criticisms that the religious leaders of the day had with Jesus, because he would go to the houses of publicans and people who were looked at as like, this is not someone you hang out with because any number of reasons. It's usually like they're not Jewish, or they don't follow the law, or something like that. And and Jesus was always one that never shied away from being in their company. But the way he approached it was different than the way we often think about it, because I think there's there's a healthy level of exposure that we can subject ourselves to. It's not necessarily like I'm, enjoying this because I agree with the ideology or the lifestyle or whatever. But when you're looking at, say, two opposing football teams, before they play each other, they study each other, right? They get a copy of the other team's playbook. They study their plays. They think about ways of countering all of their strategies and stuff. And the argument could be made is like, why are you engaging with the content from the enemy to the level that you are? And I think there's something to be said for being exposed to this in a controlled way,
right?
Because we encounter this all the time in our secular society. We encounter these beliefs, these ideologies, and these different habits that the world around us has. And I think almost like a vaccine, right? You're subjected to a virus that's either weakened or is given to you in a controlled environment so that your body can build up a tolerance to it. And this isn't, me trying to justify, listen to whatever you want and expose yourself to whatever entertainment you want. But in a controlled way, I think there's, at least a little bit of healthy exposure to this stuff, because you're going to encounter it anyway.
Right.
And it's better to be comfortable defending your position in an environment that opposes it.
I remember you talking about that's how part of the way you raised your daughter is exposing her to the cell phone and to a certain extent, and being on the internet to a certain extent. It's going to happen regardless if you want to or not. And you having some quote control over that as she grows up and develops good habits, is y'all prefer to do it that way than to have her learn from somebody else.
And the other thing too is you can't argue with the fact that there's a tremendous amount of talent in these different musicians and artists and stuff like that. And
sure enough.
Even though the message behind the lyrics might not be something we agree with, or the lifestyle of the artist might not be something we agree with, there's still something to be gained from being exposed to that level of creativity. And that's true for more than just music too, because no one really thinks about going to an art museum and enjoying the displays of those artworks. They don't really think about the lifestyle of the artist behind them or what the artist was trying to say. But we're still encouraged to enjoy that art. And it's the same, with all different styles of music. Classical music, a lot of the composers had really horrible lifestyles and ideologies, but their music is really, really interesting to listen to and can be enjoyed. Even, when we encounter sacred music like hymns or modern worship music, the backgrounds and the lifestyles of the people who wrote it, a lot of times, they're human beings with a sin nature just like us. And, especially with modern worship, all of the controversies that have come out of that, because the people who write, produce, sing, perform, whatever that music, end up having, here again, lifestyles that we wouldn't agree with from a biblical perspective, but that music can still be enjoyed.
Look at our heroes in the Bible. How many people in the Bible that we always read about? We always read about the positive things, but then they fall. Right. Then they come back. You know what I mean? It's no different.
Yeah, the biggest songwriter in the Bible, King David.
How about it?
Look at them, how many times he failed.
Right.
And here again, this isn't a means of justifying our interest in music, but I think if we're knowledgeable about the potential dangers we're being exposed to, I think it prevents us from being as infected as we would otherwise. Because if you're just blindly going into it like, I'm just here absorbing everything that's being thrown at me, That's a dangerous position to be in,
Right.
because that's what, that's how music changes
Right.
your beliefs and your attitudes and all that kind of stuff.
That's
But if you go into it armed
Right.
and
That's
armored,
right. That's
then
exactly right.
I think it's something you can enjoy, knowing that, knowing the difference between the artistic qualities of something and the ideology behind it.
Right, 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 and having that quiet confidence,
Mm-hmm.
and the way we do that is to know who God is, to know who Jesus is, and what He stood for, His personality, and what He has called us to do. The more we know that, the more we can see the things that aren't that.
Right.
I agree. Hey, one other thing about Elton John. One of the unique things about his talent was his, quote, partner in music, Bernie Taupin, I think his name is. My understanding is that Bernie would write lyrics, he'd bring them to Elton John, send them to Elton John would write the music. And that combination resulted in every Elton John song you've ever heard. The hits, the So, Yellow Brick Road, everything that was a hit, Bernie Taupin wrote, and then Elton wrote the music for. And at times, that was like a half-hour process. After he got the words,
Yeah.
he'd sit behind the piano and just kill it out. And there you go. There's this song that that everybody knows, Yellow Brick Road, all the other ones. You contrast that to Fleetwood Mac or somebody else who takes a year or 2 or 3 in the studio to create an album with so much controversy that it's everybody knows Fleetwood Mac stories. There's several of them were married, they got divorced. Whenever they were breaking up was whenever rumors hit its top. So they were forced to be in these rooms with each other whenever they're getting divorced or breaking up. And then you have someone like Bernie Taupin and Elton John, not even in the same room. Bernie writes the music, the words, lyrics, sends them to Elton John. It's such an
efficient process.
It's such an efficient process. It's so contradictory, it's so different, but it resulted in the same success. I'd pick Elton John's any day. You know what I mean? I would pick that as far as creatively. But what a gift that must have been. I mean, really, for them to have the freedom to do what they do best, put it together, and then you create magic.
Yeah.
Wow. I mean, that's a great partnership.
Yep.
That's one thing that's unique that I've read about Elton John and his creative process. They both always give credit to each other. Another thing, as a kid, if I say Don Kirshner's rock concert, if you're listening or watching, please go to YouTube and give me a comment. If you remember Don Kirshner's rock concert, just say yes to Don Kirshner's rock concert. It was live. Do y'all remember it by any chance?
Nope.
No, okay. So it was a live 11:30 at night, Friday or Saturday. I think it was Saturday night. I'd come home and I'd sit in front of the TV, and it was just live music. Guys and bands would get up on stage. They'd have a small, like Austin City Limits. You familiar with that? It's early Austin City Limits.
Grew up watching Austin City Limits.
So it's early Austin City, same environment, same thing.
Early Austin City Limits was much better than current Austin
Stevie
City
Ray
Limits.
Vaughan and Austin City Limits. Woo! Da-down, da-down. You want me to do that some more? You want me to play?
Man, it's almost like he's in the room
I
with us.
know. That's crazy. That's just a talent that I've been blessed with. I don't like to brag about it, but I will. So anyway, that with Elton John and Bernie Taupin, it was such a gift to be able to listen to them and to hear the result that they've had. It's incredible, and I'll continue to listen to that. And I think I'm going to bring in some Eagles next week.
Okay.
And talk about yeah.
That's controversial.
Is it? Well,
Yeah.
Eagles is. I'll be interested to hear what your take on it.
Okay.
With Eagles, we could talk about anybody from Stevie Nicks, to Helter Skelter. What's his name? What's that guy? I can't believe I can't. Charles Manson.
Yeah.
And it's all related.
Yeah.
Do y'all realize that? We'll talk about that next
yeah.
week whenever it's my time to talk. So anyway, and I got a camera too, but I'm not going to show it to you today. I've run off a lot of time so far.
Well, so transitioning now to talking about a man who was the absolute opposite of gray. Everywhere he went, people noticed him.
Boy, what did he? Man, oh man.
And his encounter with another person who was the opposite of gray, who everywhere he went, people noticed him. This past Sunday, we had a sort of a Memorial Day service at church. Honoring those who have given their lives in defense of freedom and that kind of stuff. And there was an interesting account from the Bible that was used illustratively in the sermon, and it was the demoniac of Gadara. This is from Mark chapter 5, and the background of this is Jesus, encountered this guy who was possessed with a ton of demons, like thousands, and there was immediately the confrontation between the two. The demons cried out like, "Are you here to destroy us? That our time's not yet." And Jesus ends up casting them out into a bunch of pigs. They stampede off a cliff and die. And that was kind of the gist of the this encounter. But there's a lot more that's going on behind this, because this came at a key point in Jesus' ministry, and that's kind of what Mark chronicles. Because the first, this was Mark chapter 5. The first couple chapters of Mark. It starts off with Jesus being baptized. So Jesus and his interaction with John the Baptist, and that alone is a really interesting aspect of who Christ was and what his ministry was, right?
Really
because and we've gone through this before in prior episodes. John was part of this priesthood legacy of people that were charged with maintaining the temple and conducting the ceremonies and the practices and stuff of the temple. And it was a practice of the temple where if you're bringing something to be sacrificed, there were specifications that sacrifice had to meet in order to qualify to be a sacrifice. And that's what's so cool about Jesus' interaction with John the Baptist, because Jesus is that Passover lamb. He is the sacrifice that ultimately takes away our sins. And so there were criteria, Old Testament criteria, that had to be met. And when a sacrifice was taken to the temple to be offered, it was presented to a priest for inspection, certification, all this stuff, and a priest would declare or whatever that this particular sacrifice met those qualifications. And so that's why one of the reasons it was so important that Jesus went to John the Baptist was because of what John the Baptist said at that meeting. He's like, "Behold, this is the Lamb of God that takes away the sin of the world." And here we have a Levitical, John being part of that Levitical priesthood line, certifying Jesus as meeting the criteria for being the sacrifice. And then he, was baptized and all that stuff. Baptism itself in the life of a priest, which Christ is our king and our priest. Baptism, washing in the life of the priest, was usually where the line was drawn. Like, now I am starting my ministry as a priest. And Old Testament priests would go through this too. They would wash, they would cleanse themselves. It was a ceremonial thing that they did to mark the beginning of their ministry, and that's what Christ was doing as well. And so Mark chapter 1 starts out with that. And then, so you have Jesus not just declaring that he's an important person, he's God in the flesh. You have that interaction between him and John the Baptist where John certifies that that's true. But then Jesus, as he starts his ministry, there's other things that start to develop in this ministry that really shape the average person's opinion of him. And as we go through Mark 1, he's baptized. He immediately goes and he's tempted in the wilderness. He begins his ministry. He calls his disciples. And then he immediately encounters a man with an unclean spirit. Now, this isn't the same one that we were just talking about. It's a different one. But same thing happens, right? The demonic spirit within this man calls out to Jesus and says, leave me alone. Are you here to destroy me? Jesus ends up casting him out. And that really resonated with other people around that saw this happen and that knew this demon-possessed guy. And they made some really interesting comments. They're like, Mark says that they were not just astonished at his doctrine, but they wondered, like, who is this guy? Because he has this, this system of things that he's teaching everybody, but he's doing it with authority. Like, he's expounding on Scripture as though he has some authoritative role in the development and the preservation, the communication of those Scriptures. Like, he doesn't talk like the scribes do, because the scribes, they were usually responsible for instruction in the synagogues, reading Scripture, expounding on them, stuff like that, teaching people. But it was, but this guy had something different about him. He did it with authority, like he was authoritative over that stuff. And so that kind of comment kept coming up over and over again. And so, there was the claim about his authority, but what is it authority over? And so as Mark progresses from Mark chapter 1, 2, and onward, it chronicles different things that Jesus was involved with. So he cast out the demons from that one guy, which made people kind of freak out and wonder who this guy is, because how does he have authority over, like, even demons obey him? Like, what's that all about? It's in the end of Mark chapter 1, he also heals a leper. And that's significant to someone who's familiar with the Old Testament, because one of the most critically bad things that could ever happen to someone was leprosy. Like, there were a couple chapters in the law just devoted to figuring out if someone had leprosy, what to do with what the person does if he has leprosy, how to handle his house and everything that he's touched because he infected it with leprosy, what to do in the community to cleanse the community of leprosy. Like, it was a bad thing. And leprosy was often used, because it was such a bad thing, leprosy was often used as an analogy for sin. Like, this is something that destroys inside and out. It pulls you apart. It's painful. It affects everything and everyone around you. It was not just bad in reality. Symbolically, it was used to represent the worst of the worst. And so here's Jesus healing someone with leprosy. That didn't happen.
Wow.
That's not, the last time, in memory that people would have associated that with was hundreds of years ago, back in the Old Testament, when Elijah healed, or Elisha, healed the leper, the man Naaman. But that's not an everyday occurrance.
Right.
And Jesus did it. And so not only does he speak with authority, but he seems to have authority over the worst thing imaginable, medically speaking. Well, it goes on. He heals someone who's paralyzed, in the next chapter. And he makes a really critical statement at this point, because so far he's been doing these physical miracles. He's been casting out demons, which freaked everybody out. He's been healing leprosy, freaked everybody out. Healed someone who was paralyzed from their birth, freaked everybody out. And then when he did that, he didn't just heal the person. He's like, but also your sins are forgiven. And that crossed the line, because the Pharisees and the other religious leaders that were within earshot, who were hearing this, immediately was like, well, now this guy is blaspheming, because nobody has the ability to forgive sins except for God.
They've seen the physical healing before.
Yes, they've seen physical healing before, and even if they haven't, that's something it's hard to say that healing someone is something bad, right?
Okay.
Is a bad thing.
Yeah.
Even if you're claiming that, it's witchcraft or something, someone got healed.
Right. Yeah.
So when we take all that into context, you have Jesus being baptized, being declared to be the sacrifice that takes away the sin. But also he has authority over Scripture. He has authority over demons. He has authority over the body. He has authority over sin itself. So this is progressing as he's sort of building his reputation in the people around him. And this is all Gentile country, by the way. This isn't necessarily Jewish country. Some of the cities that he focused his ministry in was a group of cities called the Decapolis. It was 10 cities that were like centers of Greek culture. They were on this huge trade route that linked Rome with different parts of like Egypt and the Middle East and stuff like that. And these were part of it. There were a couple right around the Sea of Galilee, and that's where Jesus was on the banks of the Sea of Galilee. Well, as it goes onward, these Pharisees were debating among themselves, like, okay, he's been doing all these miracles, but now he's claiming to be God because he's going around telling people their sins are forgiven. So logically, we can only deduce, since in their minds he isn't God. He's like, the only thing that they could deduce was, all right, something's evil about this. He's casting out demons in Beelzebub's name. That's the terminology they use. So basically, like, this is a devil casting out devils and trying to trick us all. And so Jesus, immediately that caught his attention, and he turned back on him and said, how can a house stand if it's divided against itself? And how can a devil cast out demons? That's a contradiction. Like, a house divided against itself can't stand. But this was like a transition in Jesus' ministry, because he was, in the process of doing all this stuff, he's teaching people, he's telling people about his mission and the history of Israel and his role in the salvation process and all this stuff. And he's doing all these miracles at the same time. And once the Pharisees did this, he switched in the way he communicated with people who were following him. He started talking in parables. And he did that specifically to conceal from these people who were blaspheming, who were accusing Christ of doing all these miracles and teaching and all this stuff, doing so in the name of Satan, or with the power of Satan. And so he started speaking in parables. But that's what brings us to this encounter he has with this demon-possessed guy in a city called Gadara. Gadara, here again, it was just a little ways from the Sea of Galilee, but it was a mountainous town. This is one of those 10 cities of the Decapolis. It wasn't a Jewish city; it was a Gentile city, and one of their main, I guess, exports or industries there was pig farming.
Oh, I thought it was chocolate.
Well, chocolate came by later.
What's the name of it? Gadara?
Gadara. No, not Godiva.
Oh.
Yeah, Gadara.
Darn it.
Yeah.
I got you. Okay. Sorry about that.
No, a lot of people confuse pigs with chocolate.
Yeah.
You're in good company. No, so Gadara, though, so Jesus encounters this guy. And here again, the demons that were possessing him called out to him and like, are you here to destroy us? Like, it's not time for that yet. That's kind of an indication of something later we read in Revelation that's still yet in our future, arguably. But like, that time's not come yet. You shouldn't be here to destroy us. Jesus ends up casting him out into a local herd. Is it a herd of pigs? A group of pigs. and those pigs immediately run for the nearest cliff and kill themselves, drown in the sea.
They call it a bunch of pigs.
A bunch of pigs. There we go. A bacon pile.
Slew. I don't know.
So what's interesting to me about all this stuff is, like, as he goes through his ministry, he's proving himself through several different means.
Mm-hmm.
It's not just a claim. That's one of the things that's kind of going around the internet here lately is, Jesus never claimed to be God. And that's not true. It's patently false. And one of the reasons I give is that you never hear Jesus, or it's never recorded that Jesus said specifically the words, "I am God." Now, you can argue about that as well because it's all throughout Scripture. But the problem is, at that same time, there were a lot of people going around claiming to be the Messiah. That's, if you're trying to deceive people, one of the things you do is you introduce false signals, right?
Okay.
If you're trying to jam communications, send a bunch of messages and they don't know which one's the right one. And it kind of limits your opponent's ability to know what the truth is.
Okay.
There's a bunch of counterfeits. And so that's what Satan does, and that's what was happening during this time. A lot of people were claiming to be Christ, but there was a difference, because there was one guy who was claiming to be Christ who wasn't just going around just saying it, but he was he was being baptized in public. He was being certified by a priest. He was showing that he had authority over Scripture, and he was proving that by showing that he also had authority over physical maladies. He had authority over not just a couple demons in one guy, but thousands of demons in one guy. He had authority over nature by by stopping storms on the Sea of Galilee. He had authority over sickness and death, because he raised Lazarus, all this stuff. So here was this one guy who was able to put his money where his mouth was, and actually able to prove that he had authority and dominion over all these other things, so that by the time it's all said and done, there was one guy who wasn't gray.
Right.
He was the one standing out among all the rest who were claiming to be the Messiah, and promising things that they couldn't perform. And there was one guy that was fulfilling all of the prophecies and requirements of the law, in proving that he was Christ. And this was just one example of it, that demoniac in Gadara.
Josh, should we while we're learning about that story, should we think I would be able to? Obviously, Christ. It would, I'd be able to pick out Christ, or should we think I don't know if I'd be able to pick him out or not. How would I know if it's him? If other people are claiming to be him, we got people now on the street corners doing all kinds of stuff, man.
Yeah, that's sort of been the challenge all throughout history, is how to recognize the Messiah. And
he's coming back, cuz.
Yeah, and I think Jesus addressed that a couple times fairly well, because the difference between the random dude that was claiming to be Jesus and the actual Jesus was all the events that were happening around him and to him. Jesus looked back on Jerusalem one day and said, these events that just happened in front of you, they were written about. And this is already recorded in the ancient documents that you grew up studying, or you should have grown up studying, and that your family has been studying for generations, and your fellow countrymen have been studying for millennia. You should have recognized that this event is happening, unfolding right in front of you. And it's because you haven't studied those and recognized that the city is going to be destroyed, which the Romans did in 70 AD. But it seems like there's always this requirement that we search the scriptures daily, that we study the scriptures, that we ruminate on them, so that we can recognize the Messiah.
So
Because that was the difference.
That was the difference.
Yeah.
Okay. So as we sit here today in 2025, the best way to know who the Messiah is to study.
Right.
Is to study.
Yeah.
To be able to recognize
have a
who he
relationship
is.
with him.
Mm-hmm.
That's key, right? And having a relationship starts with that, with salvation, realizing that because of the state we find ourselves in as humans, we're all flawed. We're all inherently flawed by sin,
Yeah.
and that's something that we don't have the ability to overcome by ourselves. We needed someone who took the punishment for sin because he didn't deserve the punishment. And starting a relationship with that Savior, the true Messiah, starts with acknowledging he's the only one that has the authority to forgive sin, and it's because he took the punishment for us. And placing our faith in that is that starting point to having a personal relationship with him. From then on out, part of that relationship, part of the relationship with anybody is studying that person,
Right.
what they say, what they believe, what they think about. And all that's done by studying the Word of God, because John says that the Word became flesh, dwelt among us. If you want to know Jesus, read what he had authorship of and authority over.
Right. If we have a listener or a viewer who is interested in finding that out, man, we'd love to know about that. You could write it in the YouTube comments or wherever you get your podcast. You can write a little note. Be glad to talk to you about that. Or, we know a really good church that you can go to. Marcus Point Baptist Church is a great church, and there are other great churches in town. We have a lot of great churches in town.
And if you want a cool group,
I know
the Gun Club.
Yep.
The funny thing about our group too is,
man, we have a good time last night, or what?
We absolutely did.
That was so much fun.
Yeah, and the way we do it, the way really all the clubs are designed, they sort of gather around a common interest.
Right.
Ours just happened to be guns.
Yeah.
But it's really a method of getting people together with a common interest and studying the Bible together.
Yeah.
And so we do it about guns. So we spend first 30 minutes talking about gun stuff. Second 30 minutes we engage in Bible study. We're going through Revelation right now.
That was good last night, Josh.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun for me too.
Man, oh man. Maybe you can bring that to us on the podcast. I'll just say 666 real quick, and it may not be.
Well, everyone's curious about that.
Yeah, it may not be what you think it is. Josh has a
maybe
great.
it is, maybe it's not.
Yeah,
there's alternate theories.
Josh has a great way of bringing things up that we've kind of maybe always thought of, and putting a different tint on, a different slant on it with proof. With proof, it's not just saying it.
Yeah.
Anyway, it's interesting to see.
We have a lot of fun in Gun Club.
It's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
It is. It's a lot of fun.
We always recommend people come, even if you're not interested in guns.
And it's a good way. Listen, if you haven't been to church in a long time, Wednesday night is by far my highest recommendation. Just come in Wednesday night. Nobody's gonna bother you. You're not gonna be hit over the head with anything. You'll be exposed to some prayer, and in our club, in Gun Club, you'll hear a half hour of God. But I guarantee you, it's probably different than what you've heard before. Same message, same Jesus, same God, just kind of presented in a fun way. And we always have a good time there. But thanks, Josh, for that today.
Yep.
Appreciate it, Chris. Thanks for being here. And this was episode 76.
Yep.
Real quick, I'll close with saying, yes, Donna and I had a good time this last weekend.
It was your anniversry.
Yeah, well, it's her birthday. It was her birthday.
My anniversary, her birthday.
That's right. That's right. Y'all went out to eat.
Yeah.
We went out. It's funny. She took me to a place that we've never been. It was her birthday. She said, we're going to go somewhere we've never been. And it was it Spot Barbecue? Did I tell you? I told you. Hot Spot Barbecue.
Yeah.
Quaint little place that I've been by thousands of times. It's on one of the main roads here in Pensacola, or close to it. And went in, and man, the barbecue was just so good. I'm usually good for one or two ribs because they're real heavy. I was okay eating as many as I wanted because it was light, but it was still real tasty.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But the bill came, and let me tell you, they are proud of that barbecue, bro. They are
good
proud
reason. Yeah.
of that barbecue.
It's good barbecue, though.
It is good.
Yeah.
It's worth going.
Yep.
I'll say that. It's worth going. But I looked at it, and I looked twice. I went, are you sure you dropped this off at the right table? Maybe it's for the family over there. But it's worth it. And it's not a place that we'll go every week, but every now and then, if we want good barbecue, we know Hot Spot Barbecue is a place to go. Nice place, too.
And that's less their fault than it is the economy.
Right.
Yeah.
Anywhere. I mean, we walked out of, what's that Irish place just down the street from
McGuire's?
there? McGuire's. Was it $85, $90 thing just for the two of us? It's everywhere is expensive. Yep. Paid $30 for a pizza the other night. Wow, Josh.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
$28 for a pizza. Anyway, you're right.
Remember when Subway used to have $5 footlongs?
Oh gosh, that wasn't that long ago, man. You can't get
like $28 6-inch.
You can't get out of there for less than 12 by yourself. This is for sure. Anyway, it was good, and we just rode around and in the background we had. What was the name of that band? Earth, Wind, and Fire playing, and every time a good dance song came on, we would dance in the car a little bit. Earth, Wind, and Fire would do the dance like, oh, and we would. It was a lot of good time. We just cut up and had fun. So I'm glad we had a good time. Donna, thank you very much. Chris, did you do anything specific for your birthday? Just another year. Just another year. So, and y'all, where did y'all go again?
Well, we haven't officially gone on anniversary dinner,
That's
but
right.
we did go out to dinner with some friends
Okay.
Friday night to a Thai place here in town.
Very
Sam
good.
Thai. That was really delicious.
Was it good?
Yeah.
All right. Excellent.
But it's always difficult for us to do something on the day because it was Memorial Day and things are usually crowded. So we've been in talks about what we want to do for our official anniversary date. We haven't decided yet.
Gotcha. Okay.
But we're going to go out to eat somewhere. But we're trying to figure out what restaurant we want to try.
So going to the beach on Memorial Day is out for y'all?
I don't really like going to the beach at all.
Much less Memorial Day.
Yeah,
Can you imagine?
I'm not one to be out in the heat in the sand, all sweaty and all that stuff.
I'm surprised with your complexion. It seems like you'd want to go
right. I
out.
know the tan. You would think I'm a beach guy, but
not so much.
no. So I enjoy looking out over the ocean.
Yes.
And I enjoy when the weather's nice and cool, like in the winter or late fall or whatever. I like walking along the beach, but I'm not really into the whole summer thing.
It's all that sand and heat. And
I found I came to enjoy the beach more after graduate school the first time doing structural engineering because we were in wave labs and doing equations about
creating a beach,
about
is
ocean
what
waves and all that kind of stuff.
Right,
and then when I went to the beach, I'm like, it was kind of like Neo in the Matrix, where he's like sees all the code of the world around him. That
that's
was
what
kind
you were
of the
doing.
revelation.
I gotcha.
The Stokes equations, I can see them happening. That's when I really started enjoying it. But it has nothing to do with getting the umbrella and the
nerd
and the cooler full of drinks and going out there sitting in the dirt.
Not so much, huh? Yeah. Okay, I gotcha. All right, guys and girls, appreciate it. Thanks a lot. We'll see y'all next week. Thanks.